Hey guys, Billy Davidson here with Davidson Pressure Washer Painting right here in Hammond, Louisiana. Hope you all are having a great afternoon. Wanted to talk about which, in my opinion, is the best soft wash pump. So what we're going to do is go through a list of available soft wash pumps. It's pretty much generally available to the general public and readily available, easy to get. Some of these things you can kind of put together at your own leisure. Some of them are a little more complicated, which you would have to have them professionally assembled and then shipped to you. So we're gonna go over a few of those soft wash pumps in addition to a general price range and generally the pros and cons. Now, of course, with all of these soft wash pumps, there is a giant list of pros and cons. So we're gonna probably just pick a few of the most common pros and cons with it. That way, if you are looking into getting into the soft wash game, at least you'll have a basic understanding how this may works. Now, let me start off by saying there are a lot of videos on soft wash pumps, the best, the do's and don'ts, and that sort of thing. Obviously, this is my own personal opinion from my own personal experience the last 25 years in the power washing industry. So we're gonna go over a few of those things, and these are a lot of the questions I get over a couple weeks period, and I kind of compiled them all together. And I do understand if you are just getting into the business, some of this can be daunting, a little overwhelming, and even perhaps intimidating. But after watching this video, I think you have a much better understanding of a soft wash system that may best fit your needs. First, I want to start out by saying, getting a couple guys asking about our resource page. Yes, I'll leave the link in the description below, so you can click on that link, and that link will lead you straight to our resource page. There's no other in between that. Just click that link and it goes straight to there. On that resource page, you get to pick for one of a few items that are on that resource page that you may be interested in. Please explore all those items. I believe wholeheartedly that each one of those items could definitely be very helpful to your power washing business, or either, and these are some of the questions I got, what if you're a landscaper? What if you are someone that installs granite countertops? We talked to a guy a couple of days ago that installed granite countertops. He wasn't working because of the issues going around, but we talked to him about it. He watched a couple of our videos, how to get job leads fast. And those same principles that apply to the power washing industry most certainly will apply to inside work, granite countertops, flooring, new cabinets, even outside the home and such. So in that service industry, I really feel strongly about that it doesn't just only apply to power washing industry, but a very wide, broad spectrum of service industries, whether you're dealing with residential or commercial or even government work. So look at that resource page. Like I said, it'll be in the link in the description below. Also, to make it a little bit more easy, I'll put it in a comment and I'll pin that comment. That way it stay right on top. Another thing I want to talk about, we will be having another upcoming contest. Not exactly sure when. I'm looking at a couple items I want to give away. They are significant. Just kind of like the other giveaway was the X-Jet. Mr. Jeff out of Indiana won that X-Jet, and he now has it in his hands, and hopefully he's using it, making a ton of money with it. And I'll let him know if he needed any help with that X-Jet, just to let me know, because over the years I've become an expert at it. I've used an X-Jet thousands and thousands of times with great success. In the right hands with the right training, those X-Jets are phenomenal. In the wrong hands, you can cost yourself a lot of trouble. So if you're unfamiliar with it and you need my help personally, you can always book a one-on-one coaching call, and I'll leave you my number at the end of the video where we can schedule that. I only have about 2 openings per week just because my time is so limited, but I've opened that up here recently to help guys out. So we wanted to make that for serious inquiries only, because time is of a value, and the information we'll be given in those one-on-one calls could in turn make you tens of thousands of dollars, not over the next year, but over the next month or so. So it's really valuable and powerful information. So getting on to the soft wash systems, basically there are about 3 types. And I know there are subcategories under all 3 types of soft wash systems. And we're going to kind of touch on each of that, the price range, and like I said, a few pros and cons. And of course, this is just Billy Davidson's opinion. I know everyone else may have a different opinion. And if you need to add to this conversation, please leave please leave a comment in the box below, and I'll read everyone if you want to add to this and help me explain it. Some of the new guys, this is kind of tough to explain. So some of the veterans out there that's been in the business for a while, you may can add to the conversation by leaving a comment below. So first soft wash system, we're going to talk about the most expensive down to the least expensive, most complicated down to the least complicated, again, in my opinion. The most complicated system I have dealt with was an air diaphragm. Now, air diaphragm, you have some pros and cons on that. One of the cons is the price point. You will have to have some type of large air compressor, whether it's gasoline or some type of electric air compressor to power that soft wash diaphragm pump. Usually it's CFM rated, so you got to have the correct CFM. Usually it is a gasoline powered air compressor, and those can range anywhere from $2,000 or $3,000 depending on which one you got. I have seen some guys running it on some cheaper air compressors, but they did have some issues keeping up with it. They had to stop and let the air build up, that sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying that you can't get away with a cheaper air pump, but in most cases, you're going to need one that puts out a lot of CFM. So again, that air compressor is a gasoline motor, and oftentimes they are electric start once they get that big. So you're probably looking at a couple $1,000s minimum for that air compressor, and then you need the air diaphragm pump. Now, that's only two components of many other components that you need. Other components that you would need if you're going to batch mix, you'll need to know how to batch mix. And that way, my chemical ratio chart that you can find on the resource page can definitely help you out with that batch mixing recipes. Or if you're going to use a blend manifold valve system, that's an extra expense. You're going to need some tanks there. You need some hoses, that sort of thing. So you're looking at a significant cost, possibly well over $3,000, maybe in that $4,000 range. And then you need something to have this all set on, obviously a trailer, truck, or whatever. That's going to be across the board. You need something to carry any of these systems with. So thinking about that, you got a lot of moving parts. Now, that is, I guess you can consider a con on that. Now, the pros will be those things are extremely reliable once it's set up, as long as you're keeping the water out of the air compressor with the proper traps, that sort of thing, keeping it from freezing. Like always, maintenance is everything. So those are really good systems. They're very reliable once you get a feel for them, once you get accustomed using it and getting just a basic understanding of how they work. They can work on very low pressure, they can work on high pressure, and everything in between. So your limits on that is not as restricted as it would be like a 12-volt pump. You can use smaller orifices, that sort of thing, to narrow your spray down. I haven't used one a tremendous amount, but the one I did use, I did like it. But like I said, it was complicated, expensive, a lot of moving parts, and most of all, it took up a lot of space. So you got all these components. So if you got plenty of money, plenty of space, definitely the air diaphragm would be a way to go. But like in most cases, most guys just starting out are strapped for cash for a little bit. So we're going to talk about the next system down. That would be a gasoline powered soft wash pump. These things are basically a motor attached to a direct drive pump, kind of like your pressure washer. And basically what it'll do, it'll handle straight sodium hypochlorite. It pressurizes it slightly up to about 300 PSI, and it will blow it out of a hose and a gun a couple 100 feet away. Those kind of self-contained units. Couple pros to that, it does pressurize it up to 300 PSI. In addition, it moves a good amount of volume, up to 10, 12 gallons per minute. I have had a chance to play with one of those and I loved it. It was noisy. I understand that those pumps are a little bit unreliable, so you got to be able to rebuild them occasionally. But the beautiful thing about it was you can lay down a lot of SH really, really quick. Now, would you be able to do shingle cleaning with it? You could. You're going to have to dial it back. You're going to have to mitigate a little bit more extra because you have so much flow coming out. A lot of the guys were telling me that you just putting so much roof mix on shingles. It's really quick, but you got to be really quick with your runoff mitigation, bagging gutters, ground guide, putting that cover fire down for dilution. But they're a good system. Now, some of the guys that run them I've talked to, they feel that it was better to pre-treat large, vast areas of concrete with these type of pumps versus doing shingles. They just found that pre-treating flat work, it was better suited for that. are either hitting 3, 4, 5-story buildings, because it will shoot that high from my understanding. Again, it is noisy. It is a gasoline powered. It does have a smaller footprint than the air compressor, the air diaphragm, and all the other stuff. I understand that they are a little unreliable because they have to be rebuilt. Now, the price range on those I checked are around $2,000. And then, of course, your rebuild kit, and then your hoses that go along with it. In most cases, they are pull start, so you don't have a battery box to worry about. So we are actually thinking about adding one of these systems to our trailer pretty soon. And it's not really to clean shingle roofs. It's basically to soft wash multiple story buildings, 3, 4, 5, 6-story buildings. On a scissor lift, you can probably do 7 or 8-story buildings fairly easy with one of these. One brand I was looking at, it's called the Rooster. I think they make another one called the Stealth. They got different name brands, but for the most part, you have about a 8 to 10 horsepower engine with that pump that pumps the sodium hypochlorite up to 300 psi and about 10 to 12 gallons per minute. So like I said, we're going to add one of those to our truck, but it's really not going to be for shingle roofs. The next tier down would be a 12-volt or either a booster pump. Now these are two different pumps. The 12-volt pump is what it is. It's a 12-volt pump that hooks to a battery. The boost pump or booster pump, however you may call it, that is attached to a AC outlet. That AC outlet can be from the homeowner's outlet, or it can be for an onboard generator. Both of those pumps are fairly reasonable price to get into. The boost pump is going to probably anywhere from $500 to $600. 12-volt pump under $200. Now it's just for the pump. There are other components that go with it, and we'll talk about that in a second. The boost pump, like I said, you will need a power source. That would be a generator or either the customer's AC outlet. Most of the guys that I've talked to tend to not use the customer supply unless they own commercial. Then they'll put a drop line to a commercial building. But for the most part, if they're doing homeowners, they will run their generator. So you got to have that engine there. It's gasoline powered engine that runs that boost pump. Now you can either do a blend manifold on that, or either you can batch mix. Both of those systems are pretty decent. Also, you can have the capability of shooting a little bit further than a 12-volt pump. So your price is a little bit higher. The reliability is a little bit better than a 12-volt pump. But when it does go down, my understanding is that you kind of need to replace them. It's really hard to rebuild them. So it's kind of one of those things. Now the 12-volt pump is another system that I really fell in love with over the last couple of years. I was very, very reluctant to do a 12-volt pump at first. I had heard a lot of bad things, heard a lot of good things, and they were all true. The bad things were true and the good things were true. Now the pros and cons on that 12-volt pump is, the pros is that it's cheap. Under $200. When I say under $200, it might be under $150. You can have another pump. It's a very small footprint. You can actually put a spare one under the seat of your truck. Now, they easy to change in and out. We've changed them out in the dark. So, just snap on, snap off basically, and you're up, back, and running. The other thing about that 12-volt pump is that it is unreliable for a longevity deal. So after you use it about 100 times, you probably can think about really replacing it at that point before it leaves you stranded, or either have a second one installed there on that platform that you're working off of, just so you can flip a switch and go to that second pump. That way, you see a lot of these soft wash pumps come with dual pumps in a box, if you will. So they got a backup pump there, or either use one pump for transfer and the other pump for spraying the sodium hypochlorite. Also, they don't shoot that far, especially in windy conditions. In a real windy condition, we live here close to Lake Pontchartrain. It's always got a little bit of a wind blowing, just about no matter when. We can get about 20, 25 feet on like a 5-knot day. Anything above 5 knots, you're probably going to struggle getting anything over 10 feet. It's just not going to push it up that high. You're going to start doing ladders, extension wands. And even with all of that, it kind of plays out because it is a 12-volt pump and it's got very low, pushing power, if you will. Now, that boost pump will get you a little bit further out on a windy day for sure, just because it's running off a little bit more powerful motor. Was half horsepower, 1 horsepower. I mean, they 3/4, whereas that 12-volt pump's a lot less power, but it's cheap. Now, in most cases, you can do a 12-volt pump. You can do shingle roofs all day with them. You know, sometimes you got to do a lamp. Sometimes you got to get up there closer to the gutter line. Sometimes you got to walk the roof even with that 12-volt pump. But again, it's cheap. It doesn't put out the flow. That way, you're not getting the overspray. You're not getting the runoff, just like you would, like we talked about the gasoline-powered soft wash pump. And you don't have so much mitigation to do. So less risk burning bushes and sending these beautiful palm trees to the cemetery. Because one of my friends sent one to the cemetery about 2 weeks ago, and it was $1,500 on the truck. That was before they dug the hole. So he paid the price for that, and unfortunately, he did not run that through his insurance because he had a claim already. So he was not want to do that. So guys, be real careful about the system that you use. Now, I will say this, the system that you use also will depend on how many people you have on the ground while you're there. So if you are just by yourself, it's almost a no-brainer. You're probably gonna have to go with a low flow pump, like a 12-volt pump, or either a small air diaphragm. Now, if you wanna try to blow and go and use the big gasoline powered pumps or use a big air diaphragm pump, you're probably gonna need a couple extra ground crews to keep up with you. So if you're trying to do 5 or 6 roofs a day, then you probably want to get something with much more volume. But if it's just you and you know, you're gonna do 2 or 3 a day, that 12-volt pump is perfect. Also, that 12-volt pump is good for pre-treating concrete, post-treating concrete, wood fences. You can spray other chemicals through it as well. It really is kind of a throwaway pump. Once it gives you any trouble, usually we unhook them and they go right in the trash. I wish there was a way to undo them, unbolt them, and rebuild them, which I think it is, but it's probably so time consuming. And for the price for a new pump, you can just go. So long and short, I like that gasoline powered pump for tall buildings and pre-treating, and the 12-volt pump for my everyday driver for doing shingle cleaning, pre-treating, residential stuff like that. Just my opinion. Take what you want from it, but I just want to talk about it because I get a lot of questions out there. And again, hope you all are having a great afternoon. Again, if you need to check out any of our resource pages, any items on our resource page, if you happen to purchase one, please let me know that you purchased it. Text me. That way I can program your number as VIP. That way, if you have an issue, I'll know you have made that purchase and I'll get right to you. I try to get to everybody, but I do want to give the VIP guys a little bit more attention because they have purchased from us. And if y'all need that one-on-one calling, like we spoke about here a little earlier, you can give me a call at 985-345-0778. Check prices, availability, scheduling, that sort of thing. Again, I'm Billy Davidson, and I hope to talk to y'all soon.